On April 29th, an airliner descending on its final approach encountered a small unmanned aircraft at an altitude of 3,000 feet. The flight was a United Airlines A320 inbound to San Diego International. The flight crew reported a visual on what they described to air traffic control as a shiny red drone. The aircraft landed safely. United's maintenance teams inspected the plane and reported zero airframe damage. No passengers or crew were injured, and no repairs were required. Physically, the encounter was a complete non-event, but the physical outcome hides the actual problem. The spatial data surrounding this sighting is what makes it severe. San Diego International operates in one of the most tightly constrained commercial environments. Its single runway sits roughly 2 miles from downtown high-rises. Finding an unauthorized drone at this specific altitude and location serves as a systemic stress test for the commercial UAS industry. It directly challenges 3 active regulatory frameworks: remote ID broadcast compliance, Part 108 detect and avoid rules, and local counter-UAS expansion. While the flight was unharmed, the FAA prioritizes the geometry of the violation. A drone at this altitude provides a specific data point that can trigger new restrictions for the entire industry, regardless of the physical outcome. Traffic arriving at San Diego flies low approach paths directly over densely populated neighborhoods to reach that single strip. This map shows the airspace over San Diego. For any commercial or recreational drone operator, federal rules set a hard limit of 400 feet above ground level. Above that, the airport is protected by the Class B veil. This inverted shelf structure extends from the surface directly around the runway, stepping outward and upward to 12,500 feet. Unauthorized unmanned traffic is strictly prohibited here. Yet, the United crew reported their encounter here, at 3,000 feet, right on the published instrument approach corridor for runway 27. That point is 2,600 feet above the legal ceiling for any drone operating under Part 107 or recreational rules. It also places the object inside the final 5 miles to the runway threshold. This is the stabilized approach, the single most critical phase of a commercial flight, where pilots have the least margin for error or avoidance maneuvers. There is no federal permission slip that allows a small drone to occupy this space. Because a legal flight path is impossible, we have to deduce the operator profile. The first possibility is a recreational hobbyist who lost positional awareness. They may be flying consumer hardware with the factory altitude limits disabled or overridden, lacking any working knowledge of Class B airspace. The second is a bad actor. This is someone intentionally disregarding federal limits to test the range of their equipment or capture high-altitude footage. The third is a misidentification. At 200 knots, distinguishing between a small drone, a bird, or a Mylar balloon from a flight deck is notoriously difficult. The description of a shiny red object leaves this option open. Regardless of which profile proves true, regulators view a 3,000-foot target on an approach corridor as proof that spatial rules are being bypassed. To them, physical limits have failed, which means technological enforcement is required. The timing of this encounter coincides with intense scrutiny on the drone industry. The Federal Aviation Administration is already defending its regulatory posture across multiple fronts, and they are the agency tasked with responding to this breach. The first framework bearing the immediate pressure is remote ID. Remote ID has been the law for over a year. Drones are required to broadcast their location and operator details locally. However, actual enforcement actions are rare, and the statistics on widespread compliance are unclear. If local law enforcement captured a remote ID signal from the drone during the San Diego incident, they have a direct path to the operator. If that happens, the FAA secures the perfect enforcement vehicle. Catching a violator at 3,000 feet validates the current localized broadcast rule and proves the technology works under pressure. But if no signal was captured at that altitude, the investigation stalls. That failure will instantly trigger renewed pressure from Congress. Lawmakers will argue that local broadcasting is insufficient and demand strict network-based tracking mandates that constantly monitor all drone traffic. The K-SAN incident forces a direct evaluation of remote ID's efficacy. The results will determine if the FAA maintains the standalone broadcast rule or transitions toward a more invasive network-based tracking mandate. The second framework under stress is the upcoming Part 108 rules, which govern routine beyond visual line of sight operations. The central controversy in the draft of Part 10 is the mandate for operator-level detect and avoid technology. Commercial operators argue that detect and avoid is over-engineered and too expensive for low-altitude, controlled inspection missions. This diagram shows two converging flight paths. An airliner descending toward a runway and a drone hovering in its path is the exact mathematical scenario detect and avoid systems are built to neutralize. If a drone is cooperative, the technology detects the incoming aircraft and actively maneuvers out of the way. Regulators can point to San Diego as proof. A 3,000-foot near miss provides the exact leverage needed to override industry complaints about integration costs and make detect and avoid mandatory. Finally, this incident accelerates the debate over counter-UAS authorities. For years, local airport authorities have lobbied the federal government for the power to not just detect drones, but actively jam or physically intercept them. Currently, those expanded powers are stalled in federal committees. The Preventing Emerging Threats Act seeks to expand these local authorities, granting large hub airports the right to neutralize rogue hardware. A Class B airspace violation on a major approach corridor provides the shock value necessary to break that legislative gridlock. A single high-altitude anomaly equips regulators and lawmakers with the evidence they need. It turns expensive avoidance mandates and aggressive kinetic countermeasures from proposals into inevitable realities. Beyond the federal response, there is an immediate ground-level reality for commercial Part 107 operators. The public and the press do not distinguish between a credentialed infrastructure inspector executing a planned flight and a reckless hobbyist pushing limits. You share the same news cycle. The only viable defense mechanism for a commercial drone business is what we call the compliance firewall. This diagram shows the difference. On the left, an unmapped flight. On the right, an operation protected by LANC authorization, risk assessments, and auditable logs. For operators transitioning to Part 108 rules, the focus shifts to hardware telemetry. DAA investment now serves as a primary operational differentiator. It provides the documented proof of legitimacy that insurance carriers and clients require in an era of heightened airspace scrutiny. For training organizations and corporate safety officers, rote memorization of the 400-foot ceiling and local Class B structures is non-negotiable. If your in-house pilots cannot draw their local Class B veil from memory, that is a massive training liability. It must be fixed before an incident occurs, not after. As regulators respond to rogue incidents with tighter controls, a commercial operator's ability to produce instant technological proof of compliance becomes a decisive factor in maintaining their professional standing.